Breathe. This isn't about her silence. It's about yours. Here's what most men miss. When she stops arguing, she's not tired. She's not finally at peace. She's not giving you space. She's gone. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally, she's already made the decision. And the silence you're experiencing right now? That's not her being mature. It's her being done. Marcus Aurelius warned centuries ago, silence can end a war without victory. He understood what most men don't, that quiet doesn't always mean resolution. Sometimes it just means retreat. Today, you're going to understand the psychology of her withdrawal, not just what it means, but how to reclaim your calm in the middle of it, how to stop reacting, how to stand steady when everything in you wants to chase. Because here's the pain you're avoiding. You think quiet means peace until you realize it's punishment. And once you see that, everything changes. So let's begin. 1. When silence replaces connection, understanding the silent treatment in relationships. It never begins with anger. That's the mistake most men make, waiting for the argument, the raised voice, the confession that something's wrong. But it doesn't arrive. Instead, it comes dressed as peace. Quieter, softer, almost invisible. It begins with distance. She stops asking about your day. Her answers shrink. When you talk, her eyes wander, not to challenge you, but because she's already somewhere else. You tell yourself she's tired, busy, or stressed. Maybe she is. But what you're not seeing is the slow drift beneath the surface, the moment connection quietly turns into absence. You can feel it, even if you don't want to. You tell a story at dinner, something meant to make her laugh. She nods, glances at her phone, scrolls. No laughter, no follow-up, just silence. You convince yourself it's nothing, but deep down, you sense it. She's not distracted. She's detached. There's no confrontation, no storm to warn you, only a quiet absence that looks calm from the outside. It feels mature, like space or breathing room. But it's not peace, it's retreat, the earliest emotional withdrawal sign most men ignore. And you don't notice it happening until there's almost nothing left to save. Her silence isn't patience, it's surrender. She isn't waiting for you to catch up. She's already letting go, quietly deciding whether staying still serves her soul. The decision isn't spoken. It's felt. One unreturned glance, one half-hearted answer at a time. This is where most men fail to see the truth. Silence isn't the absence of communication. It is communication. When a person withdraws their energy, they're speaking in the oldest language there is, presence removed. They're showing you what words couldn't fix. They're telling you that something inside them no longer believes change will come. This is the psychology of ignoring someone, not from anger, but from exhaustion. She no longer argues because she no longer believes you'll hear her. What you're witnessing isn't calm, it's relationship detachment, a slow untying of emotional threads that once held the bond together. This is the mirror moment, when you stop asking what she's doing and start asking what energy you've been bringing. Not the words, not the gestures, but the current beneath them. Mindset. Ask yourself, am I truly present when I'm with her, or am I only there in body? Do I listen to understand, or do I wait to respond? Do I offer stillness, or demand attention? Every relationship is a conversation of energy, not language. She didn't withdraw by accident. She withdrew because something in your presence stopped feeling alive, stopped feeling safe, stopped feeling seen. This realization is painful, but it's also liberation, because awareness is the first step back to power. When you stop reacting to her silence and start reading it, you reclaim control over your own state. Practice. 1. When silence enters, don't rush to fill it. Sit in it. Let it breathe. 2. Feel what's collapsing beneath it, not the story you tell yourself, but but the truth you've been avoiding. 3. Resist the urge to fix or chase. Presence is not pursuit, it's awareness. 4. Recenter your energy. Speak less, feel more. 5. Ask quietly within, what am I giving off right now, fear or groundedness? You'll find that endings rarely start with words. They start with silence, a silence that doesn't just separate two people, but reflects who they've become in the process. And when you finally see it for what it is, you stop trying to chase connection outward and start rebuilding it inward. 2. The mirror effect. Understanding the psychology of emotional distance. When she goes silent, something inside you begins to move. It's not just awareness, it's reaction. You feel it in your chest, in the way your thoughts start to race. You check your phone again and again. You start typing a message, then delete it. You try to sound casual, then serious, then say nothing at all. Hours pass. You see she's been online, but there's still no reply. Eventually, you break the silence with something light, something meant to look effortless, but the truth is, it's not effortless at all. You've been waiting, analyzing, hoping for the 3 dots to appear, the sign that you still matter. But when her reply finally comes, it's short, polite, distant. And that's when the real storm begins, not between you and her, but within you. You tell yourself you just want to talk, to reconnect. But underneath that, it's not about connection, it's about control. You can't stand that she's not responding, not because you miss her words, but because her silence means you've lost influence over how she feels about you. You can't manage her perception anymore. You can't control how she sees you. And in that loss, you feel yourself slipping, like your value depends on whether she's still looking your way. That's the truth you've been avoiding. Her silence doesn't just leave space, it reveals something raw inside you. The part that needs to be needed. The part that confuses her attention with your worth. The part that panics when her focus fades, because without it, you don't know who you are. This is where the psychology of emotional distance becomes painfully clear, when one person's calm detachment exposes another's dependency. It's not cruelty, it's reflection. What you feel isn't her punishment, it's your projection. The Stoics were right. The man who needs approval is already enslaved, and that's what her silence exposes. You're not hurting because she pulled away. You're hurting because her distance forces you to face how much of your peace depends on someone else's validation. Without her attention, you feel invisible. So you keep reaching. You text again. You try to pull her back, not out of love, but out of discomfort, because you can't bear not knowing where you stand. The truth is, this isn't about her. It's about your attachment. You're not reacting to her silence. You're reacting to what it triggers inside you. The need for reassurance, the fear of fading from someone's world, the inability to sit with uncertainty without losing yourself. This is how avoidant attachment dynamics quietly surface. One partner retreats to preserve their safety, while the other chases to restore connection. Both are driven by fear, not love. When you learn to see it clearly, silence becomes feedback, not rejection. It shows you exactly where your emotional dependence lives. It teaches you what parts of yourself still look outward for stability. Mindset, seeing through the lens of communication. Breakdown psychology. At work, when a client stops responding, you don't spiral. You don't beg for a reply. You take a step back. You review what you offered. You let the silence be information, not judgment. That same logic applies here. When someone pulls back in love, it's not an emergency. It's an opportunity to see where you've tied your worth to being seen. The problem isn't her silence, it's that you've made her attention the measure of your emotional balance. And when that measure drops, you fall with it. The way back is not through chasing, it's through stillness. Sitting with the discomfort long enough to realize her silence doesn't define you. It simply reflects what's unsettled within you. Practice. 1. Spend one evening without reaching out, no messages, no checking her status or scrolling through her profile. 2. Sit in that space. Let the quiet expose what's real. 3. Write down the first emotion that surfaces: fear, boredom, emptiness, or peace. 4. If it's fear, ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing, her or my reflection in her eyes? 5. If it's boredom, ask, why does my energy depend on her presence? 6. If it's peace, stay there, because that's where freedom begins. The silence outside only disturbs what's unresolved inside. If you're anchored in your own value, if you know who you are without needing to be seen, her distance won't destroy you. It may sting, but it won't shake your center. That's the quiet difference between a man who chases and a man who stands. One looks for stability in someone else, the other builds it within himself. But silence has layers. It can be reflection, or it can become a weapon. And sometimes, what looks like calm is just another form of control. 3. When silence turns into power, the emotional manipulation tactics hidden beneath calm. There comes a point when silence shifts. It stops being absence and starts becoming something else, something intentional. You may not see it right away, but she does. She notices how you react every time she pulls away, how you soften your tone, how you adjust yourself, how you keep asking what's wrong, even though you already know she won't say a word. And once she sees that, once she realizes her silence has weight over you, it's no longer just distance. It becomes leverage, not always deliberate, not always cruel, but undeniably effective. Because now silence isn't a lack of communication. It's power. You've lived this moment before. You ask if everything's okay. She says, I'm fine. 2 words, flat and cold. No eye contact. You know she's not fine, but she won't give you more. She'll sit in that silence, let it stretch until it becomes unbearable, and wait. Wait for you to fill it. Wait for you to break first. This is one of the most subtle emotional manipulation tactics, silence used as control. It's not shouting, not insults, not threats. It's quiet conditioning. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it keeps you captive all the same. Because when attention turns into currency, silence becomes negotiation, and she's holding all the value. She doesn't have to yell or demand. She simply withdraws, knowing that her absence will pull you in. You'll apologize, you'll over-explain, you'll try harder, anything to close the gap that her quiet has created. Most men fall into that loop. They talk more, bend further, reach faster, all in an attempt to escape the discomfort of not being heard. But what they don't realize is that every reaction teaches her something, that silence works. Recognizing stonewalling behavior. This pattern isn't random. It's what psychologists call stonewalling behavior. It's the silent refusal to engage, used not for peace, but for control. It traps you in uncertainty. You can't resolve what isn't spoken. You can't fix what isn't named. And that's exactly why it's powerful, because it keeps you suspended between guilt and confusion. The Stoics understood this long ago. The moment you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. Her silence only holds power because you keep giving it power, because you treat it like a crisis instead of a moment to stay grounded. Every time you rush to fix it, you reinforce the pattern. You confirm that she can steer the relationship's energy simply by retreating. But when you stop trying to fill the silence and start meeting it with calm, not to punish her, not to play games, but to stabilize yourself, the balance begins to return. This isn't about winning, it's about reclaiming your center. Because when someone uses silence to test your emotional endurance, the real strength lies in stillness. Understanding passive aggression psychology. This form of manipulation often hides behind calm tones and cold stares, the quiet expressions of passive aggression psychology. It's not an argument, but it punishes you all the same. The delayed replies, the icy politeness, the polite sure that actually means you disappointed me. It's punishment without words, control disguised as composure. In negotiation, the person who can hold the pause controls the tone, not because they dominate, but because they're not desperate to escape tension. The same truth applies here. When she withdraws and you stay steady, when you don't chase, over-explain, or lose your rhythm, you shift from reaction to awareness. You stop being pulled into her emotional gravity and begin to stand in your own. Breaking free from toxic relationship patterns. The danger of these unspoken tactics is that they build quietly. Over time, you find yourself trapped in repeating toxic relationship patterns, where distance equals dominance, and silence becomes a weapon instead of a refuge. You start anticipating silence, adjusting your tone before she even withdraws. That's how power shifts, not through words, but through emotional conditioning. The way out isn't confrontation, it's regulation. Calm is not surrender, it's resistance without reaction. Practice it like this. 1. When her silence hits and you feel the impulse to reach out, stop. Take 3 deep, controlled breaths. Feel your chest rise and fall. 2. Then move your energy. Do push-ups, take a walk, finish a task. Step into a cold shower, not to distract yourself, but to remind your body that silence is not danger. It's space. 3. Hold that space. Let the discomfort pass through you instead of trying to erase it. Her silence controls you only when you fear it. When you stop fearing it, when you can sit in that quiet without collapsing, without chasing, without needing her to move first, it loses its grip. Not on her, but on you. That's the quiet transformation, when your peace no longer depends on her participation. But remember this, not every silence is a tactic. Sometimes it's not manipulation, it's not a test. Sometimes silence is simply exhaustion, a retreat from the noise, not a weapon to control it. 4. The day she stops arguing. Understanding why she stops arguing and what it really means. There's a moment most men misunderstand. The arguing fades. The tension eases. She no longer challenges your choices or asks where you've been. She doesn't question your silence, doesn't bring up what used to bother her. You exhale, thinking it's progress, thinking you've finally found peace. But what you're really feeling isn't peace. It's emotional withdrawal, the quiet signal that connection is fading. Because arguing takes effort, real emotional investment. You only fight for something that still matters. You only push when you believe there's something left to save. When that energy disappears, when the fire dies, what remains isn't harmony, it's indifference. There was a time she pushed back, questioned you, demanded clarity. It may have felt overwhelming, maybe even controlling. But hidden inside that friction was care, the kind that fights for a connection that still holds value. Now, she just says, do whatever you want. You take it as trust, as maturity, as her finally letting you be. But she's not giving you freedom, she's giving up. She's already halfway gone, and she's no longer trying to reach you. The opposite of love isn't hate. Hate still carries emotion. Hate still shows engagement. The opposite of love is indifference, and indifference doesn't argue. It doesn't shout or cry. It just stops. Stops caring whether you come home. Stops hoping you'll change. Stops expecting anything at all. This is the hidden psychology of ignoring someone, not to punish, but to protect. It's the brain's defense mechanism when repeated communication fails. She's no longer trying to make you understand. She's conserving her energy, turning silence into self-preservation. The Stoics understood this truth. Indifference is not maturity, it's emotional exit. From the outside, it looks composed, like calm, like peace. But underneath, it's quiet surrender, a final act of acceptance that the fight is no longer worth having. Recognizing the signs of relationship detachment, this is where most men fall asleep. They confuse stillness with growth. They tell themselves, we're stable now. She's calmer. We're good. But stability without emotion isn't connection. It's relationship detachment. You're not good. You're just done fighting. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means fatigue. It means someone who used to care deeply has spent their last bit of energy trying to reach you and finally decided to stop. It's the same in leadership. When your team stops challenging your decisions, it's rarely a sign of respect. It's a sign they've given up because their voice no longer matters. That's what happens here too. When she stops arguing, it's not because she finally trusts you. It's because she's stopped believing that her words make any difference. That's the most painful form of emotional withdrawal sign. Not the tears, not the shouting, but the quiet nothing. The shift begins when you can feel that apathy settling in, the air between you too calm, too quiet, too easy. That's not peace. That's distance wearing a mask. How to respond when she stops arguing. 1. Acknowledge it without panic. Say quietly, I feel distance here. Let's give this space. 2. Then stop talking. Don't explain, defend, or justify. 3. Let the silence breathe. Don't try to repair what she no longer reaches for. Because once someone has emotionally checked out, words won't bring them back. They only confirm why she stops arguing in the first place, because communication turned into repetition, and repetition turned into numbness. The truth you need to hold on to is simple. Argument doesn't end when peace begins. It ends when emotion dies. So when the fighting stops, don't celebrate the calm. Observe it. Look at what's really happening beneath it. Ask yourself, is there connection here or just emptiness? Because when emotion leaves, all that remains is presence. Not promises, not apologies, just presence, your ability to stay grounded in truth even as something ends. And if that presence is gone too, then the silence isn't something to fix. It's the answer you've been avoiding. 5. The Stoic reset. Mastering emotional control and silence. Here's the truth most men avoid facing. You can't out-talk silence. You can't reason your way back into someone's attention. You can't explain, convince, or negotiate your way through emotional withdrawal. You can only outlast it. Not by waiting her out, not by proving you care harder, but by learning to sit inside the discomfort without needing it to disappear. She's across the room. The space between you feels heavier than the words you haven't said. Your chest tightens. Your mind searches for solutions. Should I ask what's wrong? Should I apologize? Should I act normal? But this time, you don't move. You breathe. Slow, deliberate, steady. You let the silence exist without trying to fix it. And then, something quiet happens. The room is still. Nothing's changed on the outside, but inside, you're no longer shrinking from the stillness. You're not ruled by the need to escape it. You're just there, present, grounded. That's the moment of reset, because when you learn to hold silence without breaking, it transforms. It stops being punishment and becomes composure. It stops being something that controls you and starts being something you can contain. The Stoics understood this deeply. Control ends where emotion begins. The moment you react, when you chase, argue, or defend, you lose your center. Not because someone overpowered you, but because you handed away the authority to remain calm. Think about strength after effort. You don't grow during the workout, you grow in recovery. It's the stillness that builds you back stronger. Emotional strength works the same way. When someone withdraws and you stay composed, when you resist filling the silence with words or movement, that's when you grow. Not by avoiding reality, but by holding your presence steady when everything around you feels uncertain. Most men fail here. They treat silence like danger. They rush to end it because the quiet feels unbearable. But that instinct to react is exactly what keeps them trapped. The answer isn't in action. It's in perspective. Silence isn't punishment. It's a mirror, a training ground for presence, a space where you learn to hold yourself together when your emotions want to run. Understanding the silent treatment psychology. What you're experiencing isn't just distance, It's the emotional tension described in silent treatment psychology. It's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's a reflection of emotional fatigue or fear of confrontation. But your response determines whether the silence becomes a trap or a teacher. When you remain grounded, breathing instead of reacting, you show your nervous system that stillness isn't danger. That's how emotional resilience is built, through deliberate calm in moments that test your balance. The role of the psychology of emotional distance. In the psychology of emotional distance, silence reveals more than words ever could. It exposes attachment patterns, emotional maturity, and inner stability. When someone withdraws, your instinct might be to chase, but true strength lies in recognizing that space is not rejection, it's reflection. It shows where your peace depends on another's presence. By mastering emotional control and silence, you stop reacting to that space as a threat. Instead, you begin to see it as a boundary, one that teaches you self-regulation, patience, and discernment. Because the man who can remain calm when ignored is the man who can never be controlled. Mindset, practice, the Stoic reset. Each morning, sit alone in silence for 5 minutes. No phone, no distractions, just yourself. Watch what happens, the urge to check your messages, the replay of yesterday's conversation, the worry about what she's thinking. Don't engage it, don't suppress it, just observe. Let every thought pass through you like waves fading into the shore. This isn't about emptying your mind, it's about learning to witness without reacting, to feel emotion without losing form. Because if you can master that in stillness, you can master it in tension when her silence cuts deep, when the pull to respond feels overwhelming, when you want to prove your worth instead of holding it. Stillness is not weakness, it's recovery. It's not surrender, it's conservation, a choice not to waste energy in spaces that can't hold it. It's reclaiming your own balance so that when you do speak, it's not from fear or need, but from truth. And when you reach that point, when you can sit in silence without fear, without chasing, without needing her to move first, something fundamental shifts. Not in her, in you. Your gravity returns, not the kind that pulls others in, but the kind that keeps you steady, the kind that speaks louder than words, the quiet authority of a man who no longer needs to prove his worth through reaction. That's the power most men never find, because they're too busy running from silence to realize that real strength has always been found within it. 6. The return of gravity, mastering the silent treatment psychology. Here's what happens when you stop breaking. When you stop chasing her attention. Stop explaining yourself. Stop rushing to fill the silence every time she pulls away. Something inside you shifts, not into hardness, not into indifference, but into calm. And that calm, the kind that comes from knowing you don't have to fight for presence, has its own gravity. It pulls. She tries to stay distant. She tries to use silence the way she always has, as control, as leverage, as a test of how much you'll bend to close the gap. But this time, nothing happens. You're not chasing. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not reacting. You're just there, still, grounded, unmoved. And that's when she starts to feel it. Because silence no longer punishes you. It reflects back to her. She begins to feel her own absence instead of yours. That quiet steadiness, your refusal to flinch, resets everything. Real calm doesn't need to prove itself. It simply exists. And people feel it more deeply than any speech, any argument, any performance. The Stoics understood this truth. Presence outweighs persuasion. You don't need to argue for your worth. You don't need to convince anyone to see it. You just hold your ground, still, clear, and steady, until everything around you aligns or drifts away. And when you do, life begins to respond to your stability without you having to demand a thing. Understanding silent treatment, psychology, and its shift in power. When you truly embody stillness, you begin to understand the deeper silent treatment psychology, how silence can evolve from emotional punishment into emotional mastery. In most relationships, silence starts as withdrawal, a form of control or emotional defense. But when you stop reacting to it, silence loses its weaponized edge. It stops being a test and becomes a teacher. The dynamic reverses. What once destabilized you now strengthens you. Because the more grounded you become in emotional control and silence, the more your presence communicates self-assurance without saying a word. That's when your calm becomes gravity, the kind that pulls respect back naturally without demand or resistance. From reaction to equilibrium, the psychology of emotional distance. In the psychology of emotional distance, the one who reacts loses power. The one who remains centered redefines it. When she withdraws, it's not about you, it's about what's happening inside her. But when you respond from balance rather than fear, you shift the energy entirely. Silence used to feel like rejection. Now, it's information. It tells you where emotional clarity ends and attachment begins. This is what it means to practice emotional control and silence, to stay composed when distance appears, to read stillness as reflection instead of punishment. The more you hold your ground, the more your silence speaks, not with hostility, but with quiet authority. The line between control and revenge. This is where most men slip. They mistake control for composure. They turn silence into revenge, withholding affection to make her feel what they felt. That's not power. That's still reaction, just disguised as restraint. Silence has a higher purpose. It's not for punishment. It's for preservation. It's your way of saying, without words, I'm not collapsing into your withdrawal. I'm here, steady, open, present, but I'm not chasing. That's the difference between force and gravity. Force pushes, it demands attention. Gravity doesn't move, it doesn't chase. It holds its place so firmly that everything real eventually finds its way back. Daily practice for grounded presence. Each morning, before the day begins, write one simple line. Where will I place my silence today? Not where you'll speak, where you'll hold your energy. Maybe it's in a pointless argument. Maybe it's when someone tests your patience. Maybe it's in that moment with her, when the urge to explain rises and you choose stillness instead. That's the work. Learning to choose silence deliberately, not as absence, but as grounded presence. Because true calm doesn't demand anything. It reorders everything. It pulls what's meant for you back into orbit, not through effort, but through equilibrium. When you reach that point, when your peace no longer depends on her reaction, when her silence no longer shakes your stability, something becomes clear. Her withdrawal was never punishment. It was revelation. It showed you where you were fragile, where your need for reassurance controlled you, where you gave your power away in exchange for attention. Now you see it. And now, you're no longer the man who breaks in her absence. You're the man who stands in it. You came here because silence used to feel like rejection, because her distance made you lose yourself. Now you understand. Her silence wasn't the problem. Your reaction to it was. And the moment you stopped needing her response to stay centered, everything changed. When you stop proving, you start radiating. When you stop demanding understanding, you become understood. Respect returns, not because you force it, but because you've become immovable in who you are. So let this be your reminder when the pull to react returns. Calm is my gravity. And when silence shows up again, don't fill it. Feel it once, acknowledge it, then channel that same energy into your discipline, your craft, your body, your mission. Because the man who can hold his center in the quiet doesn't chase anything. Everything that truly belongs to him finds its way back on its own.